He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow, and I'm glad you're here. What a weekend it was for me, a wild one for me, starting with Halloween. Well, it'll be a great Halloween. It was fantastic. For me, my kids are peak Halloween age, and watching the Los Angeles Dodgers win the World Series was very cool. I gotta say, about the most classic World Series I've ever seen, starting from the Game 4 clincher of the pennant, where Shohei Ohtani hit 3 home runs and struck out 10 batters in 6 innings. The greatest performance maybe in individual sports in American history, and following that up with a just absolute barn burner World Series. It was just really exciting. I'll tell you, I love baseball. In a former life, baseball was my favorite thing in the world. But prior to my life in conservative news and politics, that was it. That was the centerpiece for me until I became, full-fledged adult. And I will say I haven't been quite as invested in actually seeing a team win a World Series until this year, because finally my boys are old enough to kind of follow along with the game and who's playing, which teams are good, and who the players are. So that was kind of fun to see that happen. Though it was funny because I got to watch the epic 11-inning Game 7 mostly on my phone in the media center, the Republican Jewish Coalition event in Las Vegas at the very classy Venetian Resort, where we were there in the Expo Center there, and there was a big gala dinner going on. I was waiting in the media room, fielding interviews as they came in and watching the game on my phone. And it was a funny sensation because I thought simultaneously, I'm so lucky to be able to witness this game, but I'm also so unlucky that I have to watch it on my phone. But it was pretty amazing. It was amazing stuff, really excitement. And it's fun to see the guys who are the best in the world talk about how nervous they are and seeing how much it means to them. And they're just a pure innocence to baseball and to just Americana, even though with the case of the Dodgers, it is sort of a Japanese team as well. And I say that totally literally. Like, we've got the best Japanese players ever are on the team. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is the Dodgers pitcher, who won Game 6 and Game 7 and I think it was 2. So he had 3 wins, and he pitched back-to-back days. He had a 9-inning complete game, one of the games, which doesn't happen much anymore in the era where they really meticulously count people's pitches. So it was very exciting to watch all that. And Dodgers, very likable team. And to have one of their weaker players hit the clutch home run, Rojas, is just wild. It's something you would never anticipate unless you watch enough baseball. And then, of course, you'd anticipate it because that stuff happens all the time, which makes it such a fun game. So watch that from the Republican Jewish Coalition event, which I always enjoy going to these things. And that said, though, that this time some of it was not ideal, because a lot of the conversation ended up being about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, which was inevitable. And those of you who are unfamiliar with what goes on in the hyper online conservative news world, which I imagine most of you are caught up on some of this stuff if you're listening or watching a show like mine. But Nick Fuentes is a Gen Z troll who is incredibly charismatic and very intelligent and hyper online and very provocative, and says all sorts of things to get attention. And I think he's loosely America First. He calls his show America First. But you guys have probably seen his stuff. I know that the X algorithm heavily promotes his stuff. I don't know why that was the choice, but they do choose to promote the Fuentes stuff a lot. And he gets some stuff right, but he gets some stuff blatantly wrong intentionally, and incredibly mean-spirited in his approach. And just the type of person that I don't really want to spend a lot of time thinking about one way or the other, because of the emphasis on the trolling rather than on the values or the winning or actually trying to get stuff done that's productive. He's here to troll and to create content, and he's very, very good at that. And so it's just not the sort of thing that I'm going to cover a lot in the show. And so he really got his most notoriety for trolling Ben Shapiro, but in particular Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, he started out as a really anti-Turning Point USA type thing, and I had many conversations with Charlie privately about this while Fuentes was coming at him. And I spoke at least one event with Charlie where Fuentes supporters showed up and crashed the event and then tried to ask questions to try to get Charlie on his heels because of stuff Fuentes was saying. And he's got this charisma to him. Makes people talk about him a lot. And even to the point where I feel like I'm forced to talk about him on this show to some degree, because I feel like it's now becoming harder to ignore, because I was at this event and it was just a big conversation. So Tucker had done a drive-by on him on one of Tucker's podcasts where he called him a fed, or said he's some part of an op and that he's a gay boy in his basement. And it was just sort of mean and beneath Tucker. I think Tucker saw that right away. So then Tucker felt like he had to have him on. But having him on really does provide a mega platform for a guy who got famous trying to destroy Charlie Kirk, who's only been in the ground for like 6 weeks. And now we're already at trying to elevate, normalize mainstream, a guy who got his start trying to destroy Kirk and Kirk's movement. So it's all very off-putting, and a lot of people are deeply offended by this, and I understand it. But I only bring it up here because it was one of the most talked about things at the event, and I think people are struggling with exactly how to deal with it. There are some people who were there who are taking a very hard line. Randy Fine, who's a congressman, had these signs made that Tucker is not MAGA. Mark Levin, who's a friend of mine, was very tough on trying to make sure that these people are canceled from the movement. And Ben Shapiro's out there with a big throwdown on Tucker and Fuentes today, some sort of 40-minute podcast. I watched about 5 minutes of it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I'm sure there's good content in it, but the really, really aggressive cancellations, I don't think that's going to be the approach. I think that only draws people to the canceled individual. And there's this pattern where that if you are canceled, a lot of people in the online right community that provide a lot of energy for our movement, they see a cancellation as actually a proof of concept. If we get canceled, it proves we're correct. Because, you know, the old saying, you're only taking flack if you're over the target, something I've lived by on a personal level. But it doesn't mean that you're actually right. You might be wrong. But certainly any sort of saying we're going to cancel them, we're going to throw them out, is just going to direct more eyeballs and more attention in their way. So are we missing the forest for the trees there? And one thing that is interesting to me is just following Tucker and Tucker's insistence on talking about Israel all the time. And it seems like 3/4 of his shows are more kind of Israel based. It's I wish we were talking about other stuff, but the fact that some people would tell Tucker, you can't talk to this person or you can't talk about this subject, you know, that only makes him have people on. So he had this guy, this historian, his name is not Daryl Cooper. And I think one of his claims to fame was he was saying actually Churchill was the bad guy in World War II. And so that was very controversial. Tucker gets in lots of trouble, so to speak, but it's his own company and it's his own show. So that just means Tucker's going to have him back on. And so when people say that you can't have Nick Fuentes on, I know Tucker's wiring, well, that means I'm going to have him on. And you can judge Tucker for that, but just know that he is pretty transparent about that's what he's going to do. He's going to have the people on who are the most provocative, who are going to get the most attention for his show, and are going to evoke that emotion in you one way or the other that I can't believe this person's on. He loves that type of booking. And I think that explains a lot of the people he is on. It's like, wow, I can't believe Tucker, we're talking to this person. That's exactly what he wants you all to think. So for people who are out there who are saying when to cancel Tucker, he's not MAGA, all that stuff, it's just, I think ultimately in the short to medium term, that just directs more attention to Tucker and it shows that Tucker's commanding so much of the conversation right now. And, you know, having Ben Shapiro, who I worked with closely at Breitbart, and I think we did amazing work together, he's called a lot of the big ones wrong since he left Breitbart, in particular the rise of Trump. And so I don't know if he's the right spokesman for this. I mean, I know he's trying, but I don't think he's the right person to, you know, take the laboring oar on it to try to push back on rising anti-Semitism in the online right. But I understand him trying, and it's certainly going to get more attention for his show. And then we just have this sort of leveling of online personalities who could be the most provocative online and who could get the most eyeballs from it. And are we accomplishing anything? And I think as of now, the answer is no. So, but is the question, are these people like Fuentes who, I mean, just some of the stuff, if you guys don't know the context, aside from that his whole persona was designed to destroy Charlie Kirk, it seems important, but he's talked about things like being against women in politics, saying Jim Crow is better for black people. He professed admiration for Stalin. He said Hitler is cool. He says he's a Holocaust denier. He doesn't think that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. So all that stuff, that's all things that he said. So I understand where some people would see that as a big threat, and maybe it is. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that I know that the constant discussion of it just feeds it more, and me talking about it will feed it more too. But it was definitely the elephant in the room that was actually being discussed. So that's not even the perfect analogy at the RJC event. And it's just noteworthy because of the moment we're in where we're on the verge of historic peace in the Middle East. It's like Hamas was not discussed nearly as much as Tucker and Fuentes. So is Tucker and Fuentes actually a bigger threat, though? If you think about it, what's interesting is that if Tucker's worldview and Fuentes' worldview that we're just going to constantly question Israel and America's ties to Israel, if that was the normative worldview in the conservative movement, I do think Israel would be on death watch. Like, I don't think Israel would necessarily survive. So those of you who prefer a world with Israel in it, as I do, I see how that would be considered a top tier threat for you. So that said, how best to deal with it? And the movement, the conservative movement doing all this infighting at this particular moment is it's not good. But also, far be it for me to tell people who have created individual brands and voices to tell them what to talk about or who to talk to. So there's tons of content out there. You can choose to get other content, but a lot of people are choosing this content. And I do think it's not serving our movement very well. And that's a shame to me because there's so many good people. Because otherwise, the vibes of this event were great. People have a great time. Floyd Mayweather was there. I had no idea, but he's apparently just a huge advocate for Israel and always has been. And I think that was really cool to see that. And there's so much interesting conversation, interesting people to talk to. And I have a lot of interviews that I'll be playing for you throughout the next couple of shows. I had a great talk with Scott Jennings, my colleague at Salem, who's not been on this show before. I've been on his show. We had a great interview when Breaking the Law came out. So I'll have that for you. I'm hoping for tomorrow's show. Congressman Max Miller, who's a super cool guy, Marine Corps veteran, a young congressman and charismatic guy. Siggy Flicker, who's been on before, who's a blast. It's so much fun. And some others. And we have those for you at Breitbart News as well. And for me, it's interesting because you guys know where I'm coming from. I'm a pro-Israel guy. I think the world gets a lot worse without Israel in it. I think we benefit from their technology. We benefit from their intelligence. I think they're a beacon of hope with a bunch of Islamic fundamentalist regimes in that region. And I think they're far better stewards of the Holy Land, which I value as a Christian and Catholic, than what would be the replacement. I think whatever replaces Israel will be far worse. And I've cited this on the show before. Take a look at Bethlehem, which was under Israeli, I would say, leadership, and then now is not, and it's just gotten much less safe for Christians. And so all of that means I'm a pro-Israel guy, and I'm going to be. But then, so how big is this threat? Is it just that we've got some provocateurs who are getting a lot of attention, or do we feel like there's genuine momentum for the movement? And one of the reasons why I'm hopeful that this is not end times for American conservatism and the American rights alliance with Israel and Zionism and Semitism. The reason why I'm hopeful is not because my first job at Breitbart News is I would moderate the comments. So this is really just the people who are anonymous, and this is before cancel culture, and people post all sorts of stuff. And you could have added up all of the racism, sexism, homophobia, all of that combined, xenophobia, Islamophobia, add all of it up combined. It did not compare the anti-Semitism. There is just something about the internet where it just brings out the anti-Semitism in everyone. And it's always been that way. And if you look at President Trump's foreign policy, it has been pitch perfect A+ on the Middle East. The Abraham Accords, the way he conducted the strikes on Iran, which were strategic but also brief and safe in the sense that no Americans were injured in it. It does feel like he pushes back on Netanyahu, which I think helped him come to those peace accords and willing to get on board with it and to feel like Trump has got the deal and Trump's the alpha in the room. I just love Trump's policy on it. It always has been. It's been very innovative, and he's been perfect. So how big is this threat? And a lot of people also are trying to frame this as some sort of a proxy war. The people who are against Tucker's position on Israel it means that we're against J.D. Vance for some reason. And I don't see that yet. I hope it's not true. I've not spoken to Vice President Vance since he was elected. And I had a good relationship with him prior. As you all know, I recommended President nominate him. And I'm one of a few people who did that, but I did stick my neck out in that regard. And he and I were very friendly, but I've not had any contact with him since he became vice president. So I don't know if he's changed, but I'll tell you, everything he says publicly, I love. I mean, he's never has a false note. So it feels like he strikes the appropriate tone that Israel has a great relationship with America, and as a Judeo-Christian country, we absolutely want to have Israel in the best possible hands, but also that they are a foreign nation, and we're going to be prioritizing America's interests first, and they have to help us sufficiently if they want to expect money, if they want to expect any sort of collaboration or protection. And I feel like that's the mainstream normative approach. And so for me, that is, I'm hoping that's genuine. I'm hoping that's where it is. So, I had no idea this would take 15 minutes, and this is really sort of my briefest. This is really just my top line thinking on this stuff, and it'll continue to come up. But obviously, for me, you're getting a perspective. I'm pro-Israel, pro-Zionist, but I'm also a strategist and I'm a tactician when it comes to messaging. And I don't know if just we're going to destroy Tucker right now is a great use of time, especially because I was thinking about what is happening in the news now. And I'm also thinking about what is happening in first of all, the Middle East, where we are on the verge of historic peace, and maybe we should be talking about that. And Hamas was starving their own people, and we very, very recently came off a massive terror operation, and we're on the verge of creating some really lasting peace in the region, and we're not there. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about everything else. It seems like that's not great, but also some of the domestic stuff that's going on. There was a tweet that many of you saw if you spent any time online over the weekend by a guy named Kyle Kalinske, who's I think he's like an atheist, left-wing, far-left commentator, but very popular, had a big following for a long time. And he'd put out a tweet where he was just mocking Erica Kirk with one of those Spirit Halloween memes. You could have an Erica Kirk costume and, mocking grieving widows. The left is mocking our grieving widows. So not only are they willing to kill us and celebrate our death, but then they're willing to mock our widows as they grieve. That's the American left right now. And when I think about what's a threat to me in my life, it's not our alliance with Israel. That's not in the top 100 issues. And I know that there are a lot of people who feel differently, obviously, if you spend time online. But I think about, what do I fear every day? I'm thinking about, is there going to be subversive trans content that gets into my kids, whatever my kids are watching or what they're consuming at school? The tax rate is why am I taxed so highly, particularly in California, particularly when it comes to the waste that's done, where the more I get taxed, it seems like the less I'm getting out of the money that I'm paying in. There's so many basic things. Immigration, which has ruined my hometown. It is undercutting the wages of young people. AI, which is threatening all sorts of jobs, all sorts of industries that I think is going to cause mass insecurity, which is not only going to hurt us financially, potentially as an economy, unless we play this safe, but it's going to create bad vibes. Secularism, where people are getting less happy, less meaningful, less purposeful in their lives, and I think is dragging down people. There's so many things that are just so much higher on the list of day-to-day things we need to be taking on. And when I get out of bed in the morning, I'm thinking about, how do we defeat the American left? And that conversation online is just non-existent right now. So it'll continue to come up on the show. You guys can tell it's not my favorite thing, but it was the thing at the event. That was the thing that was going on. So I wish the thing was just what is on the horizon here, because tomorrow we got an election day and there's some historic stuff on the ballot. And let me give you some quick updates. I will recommend to you our Breitbart Fight Club show, Breitbart Confidential, my daily show where I do a deep dive with one of my reporters or editors every day at Breitbart News. And that's highly recommended for Breitbart Premium subscribers. We go in deep on all the elections, but I'll give you some top line stuff. Some of the ones I'm watching. New Jersey, where we are on the verge of having Jack Ciattarelli. I think that's how it's pronounced, which is, I don't think it's Ciattarelli. I think we're trying not to say Ciattarelli, what people are saying it, but I think that's how it's pronounced. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm more of a reader than a listener or a watcher now these days, guys. So if I mispronounce something, assume I have best intentions, and you can correct me at aloha@alexmarlow.com. But just running a fantastic campaign, and the vibes are just outstanding. He's not going to be a pure MAGA, hardcore America First guy, I don't think, but overall, by far the best of any of the alternatives. And in that race, Mickey Sherrill, who's got some real scandals that I've been tracking for you guys at Breitbart News, and we go through some of them on the broadcast, but some Stock Act stuff and some a little bit of light stolen valor, some nepotism where she's getting her kids into stuff. And it's just all these things where not a high quality person, not inspiring person. And this is a huge opportunity because Schiaparelli's running this great campaign, really unifying conservatives in that state. And that is on a knife's edge. So it's a big deal. It could be a huge change. And what opportunity. New Jersey is one of the more diverse and interesting states, I got to say. So it'd be really cool to see that and see what could happen there. Virginia, really interesting race because the governor's race is Winsome Earl-Sears seems like a high-quality person, though not super interesting, running against Abigail Spanberger, who is very vanilla, generic Democrat. And somehow Spanberger seems to have a pretty good lead, which is shocking because Jay Jones, who's on the ballot with her down ticket, was the guy who was talking about fantasizing about killing Republicans and their kids dying as well. And so I don't think Jones is going to survive. He's going up against Jason Miyares, who is a really up-and-comer conservative candidate, terrific candidate. But could Jay Jones drag down the rest of the ticket? Maybe you would hope so, because there has not been a robust condemnation of him at all. And that could play out throughout the ballot. So that's one to watch as well. Okay, next one that's on my mind is California, Prop 50, not going well out here. They are moving mountains to try to make sure that Newsom is able to redistrict in a way that benefits Democrats and to lead to less accountability for Democrats. That's the name of the game there. He's willing to lie through his teeth. He does it constantly. I got a funny clip of him that I want to play for you. It's darkly funny. We'll play this. Check this out.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
This is it's precious almost. He doesn't like a lying politician. The guy flip-flops so many times. Just the whole French Laundry ordeal where he told people that it's not safe to eat in a restaurant and then he eats at a restaurant that's $1,000 a head. You can't say stuff like that afterwards. He's got to find new angles, but that's one of his angles right now. And he's out there. He wants to redistrict. And when he's redistricting, then he is going to make it so that there is less accountability for Democrats because they're going to be in safe seats so that they could get away with more. And that's the essence of it. So, but he's going to talk about that this is how you save democracy. This is how you stand up to Trump. No, this is how you protect Democrats and disenfranchise more of the Republicans in your state to make it so it's even more of a one-party state than it already is, because he regards that as a positive. And finally, when talking about someone who was not a liar here, we finally got some candor on this issue. It came from none other than Robert Patty Beto O'Rourke, who is speaking about similar matters. Check out this point. This is a really important clip.
We're not going to let him stop us. Are you with me on that? Ándale. It also means, as Mark was saying earlier, we don't await the punch thrown by these would-be fascists to land. We punch first and we punch harder. We want California and New Jersey and Illinois.
So obvious calls to violence. Not only is he still using the fascist language after the "Hey Fascist" catch written on the bullet casing of one of the bullets that could have potentially, the shooter didn't get to it, but it was with the intention of killing Charlie Kirk. He was using the anti-fascist tropes. And then he's still talking about punching and punching and punching. So these are violent people that harbor violent tendencies. They think about how they can harm us physically. They use those analogies.
And Illinois and Maryland and every other state where the Democrats hold the governor's mansion, the assembly, and the state senate to redraw their congressional districts now, not wait for Texas to move first, to maximize Democratic Party advantage. Listen, you may say to yourself, well, those aren't the rules. There are no refs in this game. Fuck the rules. We are going to win whatever it takes. We're going to take this to them in every way that we can.
This is exactly right. And that's what we all knew. And so it's actually refreshing. And I will give a compliment to Robert Paddy O'Rourke. It was funny when he said Andale, because remember, Beto O'Rourke is an Irishman. He is cosplaying as a Latinx. He's a fake Latinx. He's not a real Latinx. He's not a Latinx individual. So, but he does like to occasionally try and fail to speak Spanish sometimes. But him saying F the rules, of course, they all have to swear now. They think that's very cool because the left loves fighters and it makes him look like a fighter. But his point that there are no rules and that we're just going to redistrict so that we win electorally, there's a very important clip, because this is what I've been recommending to Republicans, is that if you believe the left is an existential threat to the country, as I do, then you need to use whatever legal means possible to make sure that they have a hard time winning, so long as it's not totally unethical. Then you need to be able to do those things. And that's what they've always done. They've always done this. They've always behaved this way. And that's why we have this rich history of a country of gerrymandered districts. So him admitting that was really important. So the last race I'll mention for you is Mamdani, who is out in New York. That race is tightening, and it just makes it sad. And it actually makes my point about why I endorsed him makes the most sense, because now there's one poll, I think it's the Harris poll, that has it within 5 points, which shows that a halfway decent candidate would have won this race. A halfway decent candidate could have beat him. But instead, you guys in New York only put up Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Lewa, who Curtis Lewa seems like he seems like a good person, but he was never going to win. And then Andrew Cuomo is the single worst politician in America. So maybe Mamdani is second worst, but there's no one with a worse record than Cuomo. And Mamdani picked up another optics victory over the weekend. He went to a Knicks game and he apparently sat in the rafters, whereas Cuomo went recently and he was sitting on the floor. He's got the political instincts that are just so much better than any other Democrat in America at the moment, I don't think. I mean, I don't think there's a close second in terms of the best instincts. And because of that, we're going to get this experiment with socialism, maybe even communism, in America's biggest city, which is terrible. And it's all because the only alternative that was put up was Cuomo, a guy who's responsible for countless nursing home deaths and legitimate claims of sex harassment. So, and remember, he won the Emmy. I always make this point. I got to always make this. He won an Emmy for lying to you about the coronavirus. And then when he got the Emmy, he reportedly was feeling up the Emmy and noting that it was buxom to his staff. So that guy should ever hold another office again. I mean, I wouldn't elect him to my HOA. So, and because of that, we're going to get the Mamdani experiment. So historic stuff happening, and it all feels like it's second tier. But if everyone got fired up, Republicans in California stop Prop 50, as well as any moderates who like democracy at all, if somehow Republicans could keep Virginia, take back New Jersey, and whatever's going to happen in New York is going to be just fascinating. So I wish that was the talk. So, all right. Other stuff that's going on. One thing that looms over the election is the shutdown. So Trump is trying to partially fund SNAP benefits. So this is what we talked about a lot on last week's shows. SNAP program is, of course, disaster, pathetic, horrible, et cetera. But also is a reality that a lot of people deal with, and it's very hard to fix the SNAP benefit now. I had a very funny rant. I got some compliments on it when I was making the rounds about pointing out that I highlighted a woman who was complaining about her SNAP benefits running out because she couldn't afford Boursin cheese, so she had to steal that, which was cheese that was featured on The Bear, which is about a Michelin star restaurant on FX, and that she was getting the fancy seasoning. So she had the seasoning brand that had really nice seasonings. And I'm just saying that, I work 3 jobs. My wife works a job so we can have the nicest seasonings. And if we didn't have enough money to pay for seasonings, then we would just use salt and pepper, which is pretty cheap. And then that would be okay until we could afford the seasonings. But the expectation is that the government gives me enough money for high-end seasoning or else I'm going to loot. And just a horrible look. We need to revisit this program, but we're not going to do it right this second. So we got to figure out a way to not lose the political ground that could happen to shutdown. So also Obamacare premiums. Again, we entered the general enrollment period. So I was told there's going to be sticker shock. I didn't really see it yet, but we'll see how that goes. All right, other stuff that I want to bring up. Okay, I got a fun John Brennan clip. This one is Brennan was confronted at some event, people standing around. There's definitely one guy drinking a beer, so it must be some party of some kind. And someone just came up and just doorstop them for his that scoop that the fake the hoaxer Natasha Bertrand put out about the 51 intelligence agents who said that the Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation or had the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Here we go. Let me play this for you.
Why didn't you remember on the Hunter Biden? Why? Because and you misrepresented that. We never said it was disinformation. We said it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference between...
So it was really interesting here because he gets really flustered. He gets in the guy's face. He's tapping him with his finger, which is never a great look. But he says it was a Russian influence operation, which is not actually what was even reported. What was reported is that it had the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. So this is actually a step further than what was reported. But this is just all games or just playing games with language because we know that the Russian disinformation narrative was a complete hoax and it was perpetrated by guys like Brennan and Clapper who would added authority from their positions in past governments to try to give credibility to these falsehoods. And that's what it was completely.
Big difference between influence operations. No, you don't know that. Yes, Comey knew. Comey knew.
The literature said it had all the hallmarks of.
Yeah, right. All the hallmarks of. So it's just tricky. It's just trickery. These guys are so tricky. And that's what they do. So, but I wanted to play that clip. The reports are Nancy Pelosi could retire. She seems kind of out of it. She's still on the trans stuff. She had a clip. There's a clip of her going around over the weekend. I could have grabbed it, but I didn't feel it necessary because you know where she stands. But she was talking a lot about how she wants to make sure that we can get puberty blockers to young trans people. So trans children just continue to do the chemical castration of young people, which is going out of style in a major way. So a lot of the big Democrat touchstones are going out of style. We talked last week about how Bill Gates is now off of the climate change is going to kill us all bandwagon, which was the justification for a lot of his pet projects. And a lot of the globalization that we've seen in this planet over the during this century, Bill Gates fessed up to, it's not going to happen. Climate change is not going to take us out. And then Pelosi is still on the trans stuff, which shows me maybe she's got one foot out the door. Maybe she's partially checked out. All right, some other stuff. Erica Kirk called on the judge to allow cameras in the courtroom for Charlie Kirk's assassination suspect's trial. Of course, I'm for this. Charlie was assassinated on video. I don't see why the trial wouldn't be on video. And so we should all see it. So that's a good call. If the judge doesn't do that, I disagree, obviously, and we'll get to the rationale. Few Hollywood ones of note. Jennifer Lawrence, the actress who said a lot of crazy stuff about Trump in the past, says criticizing Trump adds fuel to the fire ripping the country apart. So cool. Celebrities don't make a difference on who people vote for. And I will say, I'm going to patting myself on the back right here. I'm doing it. Pat myself on the back. Breitbart News. We are absolutely at the tip of the spear on this. And Andrew would be very proud to read a quote like this. This is a big goal of ours, was to neutralize some of the celebrity endorsements. And it's a mission accomplished. One of the biggest stars in Hollywood saying so. But meanwhile, George Clooney is now out there saying Kamala Harris replacing Joe Biden was a mistake. So remember, Clooney is Obama. Clooney is Obama. So if Clooney talks, that's Obama talking. He soft pitches stuff for Obama because Obama's passive aggressive. I won't say cowardly. That doesn't seem to make sense, but he's definitely passive aggressive. So Clooney test drives the Obama narratives. And this is just him saying that there was a mistake. Remember, if the reporting, the mainstream reporting is correct, I don't have any reason to doubt it. Obama did want Biden ultimately to step aside, but even though I think he was okay with Kamala, he would have preferred some sort of a brokered convention to try to pick a new nominee or a new ticket, and he did not get that. So I think that this is partially Obama world saying, you guys, we didn't handle it, and so next time listen to us. Remember, Obama is a very integral part of the Prop 50 discussion. So he is out there and he is doing all sorts of different things when it comes to trying to re-engage in the political atmosphere. And so just pay attention to that. I've got some Michelle Obama's out there too. I got a clip of Michelle Obama. Why don't we see how this goes? Check this out.
You said we were all too aware that as a first black couple, we couldn't afford any missteps.
Yeah.
And you also say, as a black woman, I was under a particularly white-hot glare. Did you feel that?
So I guess she must have a book or something coming out, but it's just the victimhood that she just hates this country. It was always not that I'm so privileged I get to be the first lady. What a blessing it is. I'm pinching myself every day. How incredible it is that I get this historic opportunity to be one of the premier leaders of the greatest country on God's green earth. And just to think about how far we've come as a society that this moment is possible. No, I'm under a white hot glare because I'm black, and it's just really uncomfortable because I'm black. And she's just seeing racism everywhere after the country overwhelmingly elected her completely unqualified half-term senator president.
Feel that?
For sure. You can't afford to get anything wrong because you didn't get at least until the country came to know us, we didn't get the grace that I think some other families have gotten.
What families is she talking about? I mean, that doesn't, does that resonate with you? What families is she talking about? The Bush family never got grace. The Trump family never got grace. Mitt Romney never got grace. They were going after Mitt Romney because he had put a dog kennel on a roof one time, and apparently he was involved in giving some kid a haircut when he was in high school. They were making it seem like he got all these people murdered because his job was mergers and acquisitions, and eventually had to do with layoffs. That's not how I want to spend my working day, is trying to figure out ways for companies to cut jobs. Like, that's not how I want to spend my time. But it was his job, and it's not like it's a super fair and gracious attack to say that, well, he got people killed. So, and that was Romney. I say that obviously the Trump stuff is the most important, just because the way Trump was treated, we've never seen anything like it. There's no family that's been as persecuted, as ridiculed in the history of the country. Trump was on 60 Minutes. There's a million clips. I could play a lot of them, but I want to share with you two before we run for today. Check out this one, because this one is related.
James Comey, John Bolton, Letitia James were all recently indicted. There's a pattern to these names. They're all public figures who have publicly denounced you. Is it political retribution?
You know what? You know who got indicted? The man you're looking at. I got indicted, and I was innocent. And here I am because I was able to beat all of the nonsense that was thrown at me. And yet, when you go after a dirty cop like Comey, or a guy like Bolton, who I hear I don't know anything about it. I hear he took records all over the place. Who knows? Letitia James is a terrible, dishonest person, in my opinion.
Did you instruct the Department of Justice to go after them?
Not in any way, shape, or form. No, you don't have to instruct them, because they were so dirty, they were so crooked, they were so corrupt, that the honest people we have, Pam Bondi's doing a very good job.
It's a fantastic answer, is why I didn't interrupt. But I will add one thing he could have said. On the flip side, Joe Biden's White House was involved in all 6 of the major cases against President Trump. As I document in Breaking the Law, every single one of the 6 major cases against Trump had some coordination and collusion with the Joe Biden White House. This has not been explored at all, as far as I can tell. I'm sure some of the current investigations will cover some of this ground, but every single one of them, including the Tish James one, and he's correct on this. It's not retribution. These people thus far clearly are those who there is beyond reasonable suspicion that they had committed the crimes that Trump is pursuing them for. And they set the precedent that you can go after your political opponents using the law, and they did it with illegitimate means. Remember, the other thing about these 6 cases, I document Breaking the Law, the 2 key takeaways, if there are 2 main takeaways. One was that the Biden White House colluded on all 6 of the cases, and 2, all 6 of the cases used novel legal theories, which is a charitable word that I use to call them novel. But these are things that have been never tested before to get the man who was the former president and the likely nominee for the Republican Party the next presidential election cycle. And they invented new laws, or they at least tested laws that had never been tested before, if you want to be charitable, to get him. So that's all great. And it's a really why I recommend Breaking the Law, because it gives you more context for those conversations. Terrific answer from Trump, but not as good as this answer.
Zorhan Mandami, 34-year-old Democratic socialist. He's the
communist, not socialist, communist. He's far worse than a socialist.
Some people have compared him to a left-wing version of you, charismatic, breaking the old rules. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm a much better looking person than him, right?
That's it's so awesome. Guys, I say this and I don't say it enough. Just take it in. It's so good now. And that's part of why I had to start with the 15-minute conversation about, are we focused on the right stuff? And look, Tucker is a news giant and he can talk about whatever he wants and he's free to, and you're free to watch or not watch. That's all, of course, true. But it is amazing that we've got so many things, both positive and negative, to discuss, and we're just fixated on it. It's got to be Israel 24/7 all the time for whatever reason. And I'm not in on it, and I just love this stuff. I just love that we have a president who could give that answer. First time in modern history, and we just are too casual about it. It's fascinating to watch. And the other thing where he's different from Mamdani, just to take that question seriously, Trump is running on 80-20 issues. Mamdani doesn't run on 80-20 issues. Mamdani is more charismatic than Andrew Cuomo, who is one of the least charismatic politicians around. That's why he's going to win. And all of these people who are not natural born Americans who are voting, or are zero or first generation, who are foreigners or children of foreigners, that's what's going to deliver him the victory, assuming he wins. And that's a reality that we don't discuss. He's not going on 80-20 issues. He's going on radical issues. He's running on things that are going to be wealth tax, going to be very hostile to business. It's going to be very soft on crime. It's going to be very high tax and a lot of government-funded stuff, government-funded grocery stores, things like that. That's a huge difference from Trump. The centerpiece of Trump's agenda thus far have been popular issues. That's what it's about. All right. I guess I have a lot to say today. That's good. I want to play an interview with Max Miller. I had Congressman Max Miller from Ohio, an impressive guy. And I want you to get this. And because I've got these interviews, they're good. I don't want them to get stale, but this is me and him talking at the Republican Jewish Coalition. Thanks to Misty and to John Cassio for pulling clips. And all of you telling 10,000 friends and family members about the show. I will tell you that I've got a new advertiser, because we're getting towards the holiday season, that's coming on this week. I'm trying to make it perfect before they join, before I start doing the reads. But just put this down. I got a campaign I'm really enthusiastic about. I'll be telling you about it. I'm targeting Wednesday's show to introduce this to you. But just be on the lookout for this, because I got a great recommendation for those of you who are inclined to do some charity at this time of year, as I do. I do all my charity at the end of the year, pretty much. Unless I feel emotional, which is, it counts the same earlier in the year for tax purposes. But we'll have that for you later in the week. But let's play Max Miller, and that'll be today's show. Thanks again. So Congressman Max Miller from Ohio, you're here at the Republican Jewish Coalition. You're one of the Jewish members of Congress. So we're adding Jews to the Congress. That's a good thing, right, overall, in general? Absolutely. So what's the message to this group today?
The message to this group today is the same message that I had as I've spoken here previously, which is never be afraid of who you are, where you come from as a Jewish American. In my experience so far in the last 4 years, I feel as if other individuals want to intimidate people who either support the state of Israel or who are Jewish American. And to be very direct and clear, that anger and aggression was taken out on me in June when some individual drove me off the road and threatened to kill me and my family. And he's now been indicted on 3 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, but that is how very much, and that is my message to the people of the Republican Jewish Coalition, that our relationship with the United States and Israel will always remain steadfast and strong, but remember who you are and where we come from.
So what's most interesting to me is that a lot of the chatter online, if you're at all an online person, the conservative movement, a lot of it's about Jews, Israel, and so much negativity. And then overall, the president's policy has always been fantastic towards Israel and the Middle East. It's A+. And so I feel like are we spending too much time talking about these things, or do we have to talk about them because of all that energy online from the anti-Semitic crowd?
I sadly believe that we need to address it. And we have people on both sides of the aisle in the Democrat Party, more so than our party in the Republican Party, who are starting to spew anti-Semitic rhetoric. And we've been seeing it. You've seen posts online about 30 shekels or $7,000.
Yeah, what is that about? I didn't bother looking into that. I need to look into that.
Well, it has biblical history, but essentially what people are saying is that they are paying individuals $7,000 and every single time that they say something supportive of the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And it's very upsetting to me. One, I believe it's incredibly anti-Semitic to be out there and saying that. But two, people are focusing with these conspiracy individuals with Jewish people. What they should be worried about are people like Zohran Mamdani and Sharia law that is trying to take over our country, and how, we are seeing an influx of this in socialism. And while, everyone is focused on whether Jewish people are doing this and doing that, I can very much tell you that those are all much conspiracy theories. I am a Jewish American. I served in the United States Marine Corps. My loyalty is to the people of the 7th District of Ohio and to the United States of America. No one is paying me $7,000 to make a supportive post about a country that has the most similar values to the United States of America and the world.
Yeah, I got to say, if I was getting $7,000 for every time I said something nice about Israel, I wouldn't have flown for Southwest and Middle Seat in this morning for the interviews. No, so, but this is, it's something that it is disturbing, because it does feel like a lot of people are claiming the mantle or the banner of America First are completely obsessed with Israel anti-Semitism, and they can't stop talking about it. And it's a curiosity for now, but we don't want it to become policy. We don't want it to affect policy. And there is a concern, being here, you can tell that people are very concerned that they're eventually they're going to have numbers, and it could be more politically powerful within the conservative movement.
Absolutely, but I want to be clear. MAGA and Make America Great Again is no one else's movement but President Donald J. Trump's. Now, you have people out there who are trying to hijack it and make their own, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I think that's really cute as she continues to try to do that. But this is what Make America Great Again means by Donald Trump. And this is what it will always mean, which is a secure southern border, an economy that works for everybody, dialing down foreign wars and getting peace agreements, and fixing our supply chain issues, and making sure that we can be more independent on our own and have better trade deals with foreign countries. That is what Make America Great Again means, and it always will. People like Marjorie and others who are taking MAGA and making it their own are essentially defectors from the party itself, and that's why I classify her as a populist. I mean, right now she's out there pushing for an indefinite extension on the Affordable Care Act when it is the most costly piece of legislation in our country's history, and she's going on The View. The reason why I bring that up is because that is not what's best for the American people. That's what's best for her. So when individuals express that type of sentiment, they're not in it for the party, and they're not in it to support President Trump like I am and the rest of us are. They're in it to support themselves and their own platforms, and it's incredibly dangerous for the people who follow them.
Yeah, it is interesting, because I always like a good iconoclast, but sometimes you got to be able to get certain things done. And one thing that hasn't gotten done is the government is shut down to some degree at this point. A lot of the debates about SNAP benefits and about Affordable Care Act subsidies, what do you see as the path out of the shutdown at the moment? Absolutely.
So when it comes to the shutdown, even when I was in the majority under President Biden, we voted, and a lot of Republicans voted for this same CR. That more Democrats voted for than Republicans did several times. What this has to do is that Chuck Schumer knew that Republicans were going to do the responsible thing in considering to put a vote on the Affordable Care Act for an extension of 12 months while finding an amicable solution that would lower the cost of premiums and do better and actually make the Affordable Care Act affordable for the American people, and actually continue to have it go on for 36 months after the fact in terms of a COBRA-like setting. Democrats are asking for an indefinite extension, which is incredibly unreasonable. I think it's incredible that Republicans have come to the table already and have offered Democrats a vote on the ACA when no Republican in history has ever voted to support it. I believe that is a negotiation, and that's us meeting in the middle, and they have just realized that they want their way or the highway, and they're not going to get it.
So let's talk about SNAP in particular, because the program is just rife with abuse, and all these people who are foreigners or people who are just using the money for unhealthy foods, and then they get unhealthy, and then we need to pay for their health care. It's a big nightmare, but there are people who are dependent on it, and just ripping it away because Chuck Schumer is getting threatened by AOC doesn't seem great either. So what is the path forward for that program, which is a problem, but also people aren't relying on it?
So I want to be clear on this. Republicans in Congress during this shutdown have put forward solutions and pay-fors in order to get SNAP approved, in order to pay our military and border and everyone else within the federal government to try to do the best that we can. The Democrats are the ones who are blocking that effort right now. Now, there was a ruling. I have no idea if the Trump administration is going to appeal it when it came to SNAP. It was made yesterday saying that those funds have to be allocated to the states so they can disseminate the food. If there is no appeal, I assume that that happens. But make no mistake, there is only one party who is actually trying to address these issues while the government is shut down. And once again, to be clear, Democrats in the Senate have voted to block this time and time again when it comes to military pay, and I believe they would also vote to block SNAP benefits if a vote like that could hit the floor.
Yeah, I think they would. That's right. So what about bringing it to the floor? Is that an option?
It's an option as soon as we get the government open. And I want to be firm on this. We should not break up the filibuster in order to get the government open, and that's my fundamental belief. I am not going to hand the Democrats statehood for Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico down the road and look at this like Harry Reid when he decided to use the nuclear option.
Right.
And because of that, look how that played out for the Republican Party and how miserable it did for the Democrats.
Yeah, let me just frame it up direct so that there's context. So the president called for abolishing calling for the nuclear option, blowing it up, and then I know Leader Thune doesn't want to do that. Give me your take.
Right now, caught in the middle, but if I had to pick one or the other, I always support the president. He's the commander-in-chief at the end of the day. But with Leader Thune, I respect his decision in keeping the institution of the place. I believe it's a dangerous precedent. To open up the government for a Democrat clean CR that every Republican voted for without getting more than that, I believe would be an irresponsible thing to do, because as soon as Democrats get control, as I had just recently said, there is no doubt. And it's not only that they'll give statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico, they'll move to pack the Supreme Court. They'll move to go after our gun rights. And I think it is incredibly dangerous to push forward ending the filibuster in this moment without actually getting what we want out of it. And right now, I don't see that happening.
So my thought then is always, what's preventing them from just doing it anyway whenever they get power, them making sure that they don't have to worry about the nuclear option?
I believe that we would have a much better chance of holding the Senate majority as we do in the next election coming up in 26 and 28 with the map that we have and continuing to fight this battle. Right now, I do not like that the government is shut open, nor do I support it. I voted to keep it open. But right now, the American people are seeing who this is working for, and right now, the Republican Party, sadly, is seeing more support because of this. We do not like that the government is shut down, but the American people are seeing that the Democrats are not being reasonable, and somehow, some way, the independents in the middle, and I believe reasonable Democrats are seeing this, and they're coming over to our side, and they're saying, look, the Democrats are hurting people. Leader Jeffries said it himself, that shutting down the government he would never do because it would hurt the American people, and he would never do it for a negotiating standpoint. And look what he's doing now. And he only said that a year and a half ago.
Right.
These people are incredibly disingenuous. The American people see it, and I believe that the government will open up in 3 weeks after Chuck Schumer wants to scare them so they can see their premiums skyrocket through the roof, which is irresponsible.
Of course, but they think they could beat the Republicans in the messaging war on this, but all the polling is suggesting they're not.
Yeah, no.
So far.
Look, the Republican Party before, and I was here when I was a staffer during 2 government shutdowns. During both of those government shutdowns, what happened and what did the Republican Party get? Sadly, we got nothing. And then when it came to the midterms, especially in 2018, we lost a historic amount of seats, giving the majority to the Democrats in a massive fashion. They have no message right now. It's my belief this is manufactured by Chuck Schumer because he knew Republicans were going to do the right thing by the American people by figuring out a solution to extend the ACA, and he had no other option but to close down the government and wedge this issue, and it was the last thing that he had left. And I believe the American people have seen through that, and that people are going to break, and that we will see the government open up in a couple of weeks.
Congressman, you were a Marine Corps veteran, and his memory serves. Okay, so
yes.
That's very cool. So I just grabbed you in the hall, which is great. So going off memory here, I could have done a quick Google, but it feels like this is a great moment for military recruiting. It feels like we're coming back, but this is really important because we are a peace through strength party, and it feels like we don't want unnecessary foreign wars. We don't want forever wars. We don't want to start new beefs around the world if we can avoid it. But that said, part of that is making sure we get the strongest, most badass fighting forces in the world. Feels like we're on the right track, but could you put some color on that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, President Trump sent a very clear and strong message when he decided to take out 3 of the biggest nuclear sites in Iran.
Yeah.
And look what has happened. That's peace through strength right
Yes,
there.
It is, I agree.
And right now, it's quiet. And right now, we finally have a leader that when he says something, he does it. And before, we didn't. Look what President Trump was able to do in getting the hostages released in just about a 10-month or 11-month window of time. Joe Biden, who was president of the United States, couldn't even control himself or lift a finger and say, release the hostages or something bad will happen to you. There was no integrity there. We finally have a leader that when he says something, people listen. And so I believe that we are back on the world stage when it comes to leadership, and President Trump is the one who is orchestrating and conducting peace deals and bringing countries together to make sure that this world is a safer place.
Now, how about bringing in more younger people who are excited to serve their country and be tough on our behalf to keep us safe?
Absolutely. Look, I served under President Barack Obama under my time in the presidency and a little under President Trump for the very end of it. But what I will tell you right now is that when I talk to my Marine Corps brothers who are still in there, they are motivated than ever that President Trump is in office. They feel that they're incredibly supported by Secretary Hegseth, that they look at how they can benefit their lives, increase the quality when it comes to the barracks, make sure that they have the proper equipment, that every single one of them can come home at the end of the day. And that is the ultimate victory, and that is what we want in the United States military. And that is what President Trump and Secretary Pete Hegseth are delivering on. And I believe it's a beautiful thing.
Still one of the sleeper best cabinet picks that Trump picked. And it's one that caught me completely off guard. And I saw the math so quickly, because if you're a young person, you're thinking about signing up. I mean, that's the guy you want to serve under as Secretary of War. Like, that's the guy. Like, it's just a perfect. The optics are just beyond belief.
Well, and if you listen to what he said during his Senate confirmation hearings and what he wanted to do, he wanted to take care of the troops.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an enlisted Marine, so I was a corporal in the Marine Corps. And when you hear that as somebody who's enlisted, and I'm sure even as an officer for people who are in the military, when you hear that you have a Secretary of Defense who wants to take care of you on the ground, who wants to make sure that they're not just looking at you as a number or a body bag that they can put somewhere in order to keep our country safe, that makes us so much more motivated to go out for this country, to fight for somebody like him with the leadership that he and President Trump exudes. Yeah, that's why you've seen an uptick in military recruiting since the president has been here. It's been a beautiful thing.
Last one for now. So when the government eventually gets back to normal, what are you most excited to work on?
I've got a cryptocurrency bill in the works right now that I'm incredibly excited on. Right now, we are going to be introducing it with Horsford on the Ways and Means Committee, and it's going to be a crypto tax. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring in revenue as a pay-for the federal government, but it's also going to be backed by the United States of America. So we regulated cryptocurrency last term by Fit 21 on the Agricultural Committee. I got into it as a young guy, and now I have a unique opportunity working with Chairman Jason Smith in order to get this across the finish line, which would be transformational because President Trump and David Sachs have really been focusing on crypto and bringing this thing to a reality, even with the Genius and Clarity Act in the Senate.
Can you give me a little more detail on that, just because I know my audience loves this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I believe that cryptocurrency is a financial institution which is traded within the billions of dollars. There's an argument, is it a commodity, is it a security? We obviously know what a gain and loss transaction would be when it comes to this, of just selling it. But when it comes to the taxation of things, we also know that you can buy things through cryptocurrency or any different form of it, or even stable coin, which will be coming out, and things of that nature, and looking at the tax on that. But I believe that if you have an investment within cryptocurrency, and this is going to be backed by the world reserve currency, which it is, you are only going to see more investment, and we will beat China to market, being one of the most competitive financial institutions when it comes to cryptocurrency in the entire world.
And Sachs likes this.
I believe that he does, yeah, and they're pushing for this along with the Genius and Clarity Act and the framework from this, which is incredibly bipartisan. And just for context, really quickly, I think it's hysterical it's bipartisan, but I'm proud that it is, because just about a year ago when Biden was in office, he was so hostile towards cryptocurrency, and so was every single Democrat pretty much within the Democrat Party and all of Congress. And I believe that they've seen that the American people are interested in this, that there's a significant investment in it, and that they made a mistake, and they want to work with us together to produce a great product for the American people.